Today's guest is Gary Murray, long-time Scout volunteer with over 50 years of service and a very recent recipient of a Rockhampton Regional Council Australia Day Award as well. Gary, I get to work with as in Scouts, as the District Commissioner, and Gary's as the Group Leader for Warrapari Scout Group. However, I learned so much from you, Gary, and I'm super happy that you agreed to do this podcast with me so that we can capture a bit of your story and a bit of what drives you to do what you do in Scouts. So thank you so much for coming along and joining me today.
No worries. Thank you.
So I have a bit of an odd question for you first before we really get stuck into the questions. And I'm curious to know, if you could be an expert in absolutely anything in the world, what would it be and why?
What it would be and why. To go back in time and start all over again.
Oh, really?
That's about it. Yeah. There's so many things when you're getting older or when you are older and you can look back, which is lucky. Yeah, it's unreal, like the things, mistakes you make and all that. And you're thinking, gee, yes, but that's about it, I reckon.
So you would be an expert in time travel then, hey?
Yes, time back.
Yeah,
The future,
fair enough.
no, but the time, travel back in time, yes.
Yes, all right. Well, fair enough. Well, when we can invent that, we'll you can be first cab off the rank.
That's for sure.
So I'm pretty curious, Gary. So I'm wondering how it is that you are the way you are today. And I'm wondering what sort of key moments or people or experiences from your life, your entire life, which is very experienced.
Yeah.
How's that shaped who you are today?
Joined, well, my main thing was I joined Scouts as a kid at 8. Dad took me up there and I forgot to leave, is what's happened, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and over the period of time, learnt many things, met lots of people, great things, great times and activities, but none of it rubbed off on my family, such as my immediate family now and not my siblings, because they all attended Scouts, Guides, Brownies and that as youth members, but none of them ever went on to be a leader or that, or any. I think a couple of their children might have went for a while when they had them, but at the end of the day, none of them followed through, and I seem to be one that stuck there. Yeah, and it was an opening to do things. I really enjoyed putting things together, working with groups, and yeah, it sort of grew from there. And the groups we were working with then was 35 kids. And I started there as a kid at 8, but then I went as a cub instructor when I was 16 to the same group. And then, but we were running camps and doing, for the Cub Scout section was my main interest. And we ran hell of a lot of big things. And the amount of kids we had, and we always had problems trying to get people to help out, assist out, and be assistants, which they sort of dripped and drab come through like they do sometimes. And you end up with a big group because, you get a lot of people encouraged to join by their children. And then when they move on, they do go on to other things. Yeah, like the size of the groups and the activities we offered was unreal at the time. But over the period of the time, with all this new net world and all the other things that have come on board over the years, it certainly has had a big challenge for scouting. And the size of groups is really, really shrunk now. And, it shouldn't have any bearing on as long as you're offering good quality programs, interaction with everyone, and that you still can put it all together. Over the years, I've just noticed it just go from, up there in the top echelon of youth activities to now to really struggling to keep ourselves or keep our head out of the water, thinking that with activities, costs, and the youth of today, because there's so much other things going on out there in this world that it's a really competitive thing for to get children and adults to get into associations like the Scouts and obviously others with sporting activities and any other thing that kids might like to participate in.
Yeah. So why do you think Like, why do you think you forgot to leave when your siblings, they did their time in Scouts and then they moved on and they had their own families and their families might have done it for a little bit, but why are you like, what's shaped your outlook on sticking with Scouts essentially for as long as what you have, over 50 years of service?
I think, well, I enjoyed putting things together and arranging things, and it just kept me occupied. I think it was just that I used to play a lot of tennis till I was probably 30. I was playing A grade tennis here in Rocky and that, and then I give that away, and then I went to shift work, and then it sort of worked in well with the shift work. Well, a lot of people say it didn't, but I found it was quite good. Yeah, and it did work, did okay, and I just enjoyed doing it. I don't know, I must have been a bit special. I've just done things, and we did have a really, really, what could you say, a real cohesive group in Warrapari of leaders and kids. I mean, at its peak, I think we used to have about 100, 130 kids, and
Mm,
that was before Joey's
mhm.
were on, and that was when we had Ventures, when we had Rover Crew and all that stuff. It was massive for probably 15 years, say towards the end of the 70s. Yeah, and but yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting. The people, the leaders that were there, known for a long time, and they were all quality leaders and people that wanted to do things and respected in the community. And we did do lots of, like activities outdoors and that. It was, it was pretty, well, it was full on. You never ever, I never, I don't know, I didn't lost interest in it. It was as I got older, I did. But yeah, but it was always something happening and just organising things and working, doing that. And I think, yeah, okay, I just hung in there to do
Yeah,
stuff and I did have a lot of leaders come through over, but of recent times it's been very, very few and far between
mm,
leaders and committees. It's been a hell of a nightmare for any group, scout group,
it is a bit of a
around with,
challenge sometimes.
yeah, yeah, and that's I don't know why we're so much more busy or something or whatever's going on with families and activities, but I think it all boils back down. There's much more activities out there available for
Yeah,
children,
there's a lot
adults,
of variety.
and the time to do things and that, yeah, it's just a full on thing, yeah. But
Mm.
no, but
No, well, yeah, no, that's all valid points, and it's interesting to hear your observations and,
yeah,
the way you've seen everything change over the years as well. Yeah, it's definitely very different to I can imagine what it was in the 70s and
yeah.
it is to what it is today. So you mentioned you were a Cub Scout leader and now your role is, of course, group leader for Warrapari. What
Mhm.
other sorts of roles have you had at Scouts over the years? I mean, 50 plus years is a very long time to stick with a volunteer organisation. And I know myself, there's a lot of opportunities out there. What else have you been involved with? And what sort of big major events have you been to?
The well, one of the most major thing that we done here in my scout life was that I transferred from Warrapari to Gracemere. The late Keith Nichols and a great band of Gracemere people, which Alan's family grew up out there, and it was a very small, if you called it a hamlet or a small community and I can't even remember what date it was now, that we started Scouts at Gracemere. We had the Gracemere State School. The
Mhm.
Scouts met, the Scout troop. The Cubs, we met down at the community dance hall, and the committee met around different people's places. And then we acquired I think it was the Anglican church they called it. And Norm James, a house mover in Rockhampton for many, many years, as they said, they rolled it down the hill, and where it is today is where it was placed. And it's very good to see at the moment that Gracemere Scout Group is really booming. And the highlight of the Gracemere Group was when the late Alan Sherlock, the Chief Commissioner of Queensland, he come up and opened it for
Wow.
us. But he actually grew up in Caroline Street, just where St. Vinny's are now, in the corner of Caroline and Gladstone Road. His parents had a little shop on I think it's John Street runs that way, John and Caroline Street. It was just on where the shed is at St. Vinny's is where their shop was. And he grew up there. Then he moved to Brisbane and he was a chemist for many, many years. But he passed away quite some years ago, but he wasn't he wasn't elderly by any means. But yeah, he come up for that and opened the Gracemere Scout Group, which it was a hell of a day. And I mean, I do have photos somewhere here that I should dig out and get them to the right, back to the right places. And that with that, and that was one of the major things with going on. The other couple of ones that we ran, Queensland Venture, I suppose it's 25 years ago now or so, that we ran 2 ventures for Queensland. And the first one we had about 180, I think it was, ventures from Queensland. The second we had was about 320 at Brown Hut. We done all the catering and all the touring and throwing with the Venture Council of Queensland, and that was a hell of a thing. It was in the September holidays. No, it might have been June. It was either June or September holidays. And we had activities arranged right from Keppel Island to Emerald for the Ventures to do. And they went to coal mines, they went out to Rubyvale, I think it was, over to Keppel Island. They had a crocodile farm. They had the caving and rock climbing and that at the caves and activities there. And they also, I think they done abseiling at Mount Archer and at Sioni itself. And that was quite a large achievement. And most of the leaders from Warrapari got in and helped run it, catered for it, and run a exceptionally good show they did on those 2 things. The other ones that I've done Jamborees at a couple at Adelaide, a couple at Victoria at Elmore. I think it's 2 or 3 at Sydney. The highlight of the Jamboree at Sydney was 1988, because that was the first bicentennial event, official event in Australia for the centenary in 1988. And it was a World Jamboree, and it was something like 25,000 there then in 88. And it was a massive Jamboree. And I worked in the services of the service leaders part, and we were virtually looking after the Q store and the gear and that was one hell of a camp, that one. You met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people over the period of the 10 days. I think we were down there might be 12 or 14 days. And I'd also done one at Maryborough, one of the first ones, I think, at the Maryborough Showgrounds. And that was about the end of my Jamboree. Never ever went overseas for a Jamboree or anything like that. And I also attended Rovers for a while, but it was my service was, I was doing a leader at Warrapari, assistant cub leader and that. And we used to do caving, abseiling and that out at Mount Etna. And the other activities were catching up with the ranger guides at the time. And it was pretty big in that era. So that would have been from when I was 18 till I was 26, the rover section. And the other highlights of it was that we ran the scout reviews from 1969 to 1972 at the Municipal Theatre. It's exactly a blueprint of the gang show. We all, leaders and kids, we all appeared in it, and it held the record. It held the record for attendances at the old Municipal Theatre. We used to have, I think it was Thursday night, Friday night, a matinee Saturday, and a Saturday night show. And we held till the day they pulled it down, the record for having 5 full houses at the Municipal Theatre. And we built all the sets. We done all the backdrops. We got a lot of the costumes and music and that stuff from the gang show in Brisbane. Mm-hmm. They'd come up on a rail motor to see the show. And I think the first show we had I was working on the sets and the backdrops and all that stuff. And I was 17 then. And then the following 3 years I was in the show, and we all performed, sung, danced, made the sets, done this, done that. And that was a full-on thing for that period of time. and it was good that it went for the 4 years. Yeah, it was a great thing. And the scout groups, especially the scout troops and the scout group, were massive in the end because all kids wanted to be in it. And I think the first show might have been about 60 people. And the final show we done would have been about 120, 130 kids, but there was no guides or brownies in it at that time, or girls, and that in it. But it was a massive, we done all that. It was the Scout Review, it was unreal. No, again, I've got photos and books of photos here and programs and all that. How we done it, I don't know.
I don't know.
We're all
how you did it
working,
with
all doing this and
120.
that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was. So that's some of the highlights, most of the major highlights that I could think of, up to spur of the moment. But so I went from one thing to the other, but the fellowship amongst that era and prior to that, and even after that era of the Scout Review was great because you had this big cohesion of groups in Rocky that went on, and then as things started to change in the next 15 years or so, things just they didn't go downhill, but they slackened off, and people had. But as I was saying before, there was more stuff out there to do, and the world changed a hell of a lot in that 50 years.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I didn't know that we had a version of a gang show in Rockhampton.
And touching on that, we did bring the gang show up, and it cost us a lot of time and effort. We brought it to the Pilbeam Theatre for 2 years. And they were on, I think they might have done, it was 2 or 3 shows they done, but they were the same. They were completely sold out, but a hell of an expense to get it up. The first lot we bought up on a train, the next lot we bought up on buses. The contingent of them was just too many, like too many hanger-oners it was. It was a great thing, but you had, say, 100 people in the show. You had about 250 people, and we were feeding them at the old headquarters hall in Fitzroy Street. I think it was in 3 sections, or what do you call it? 3 waves of serving, first sitting, second sitting, third sitting. And the district committee ladies and men worked on that and fed them there between the shows and that, and most of the backstage crews stayed at the old headquarters in Fitzroy Street and that.
Yeah, wow. So with your formal roles in Scouts, has it predominantly been assistant Cub Scout leader, and then group leader, or have you done any other roles, any district roles?
And done the badge secretary and what do they call it, a district leader on that for probably about 4 or 5 years to have a break. And I was doing the badges, and that actually I took over from Billy Russell. When he had enough of it, and I took over from Bill. It was probably maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I done on the badge secretary side of it, and then I come back and helped out down at Siani Park and that, with different things that were going on with Keith Nichols. He was a commissioner then. We were doing other activities and fundraising and that for everything we're trying to get done. And then Lloyd Pearce, he was the group leader at Warrapari, and I run into him one day and he said he was thinking about giving it away after, I don't know, the 5. Actually, I think he might have. No, he didn't. There was a lady took over from me when I left from Brisbane, and then he took over from her, and then he done about 5 years. So it must have been about 7 years or so. I was doing other stuff on the district, or it was called district then. And he said he'd like to give it away. Well, then I went back in there.
So, Gary, badge secretary, that's not a role I'm familiar with, having only been in Scouts since 2016. What is that? What is that role?
What used to happen was you used to have to fill in this little, and I think I've even got the old cupboard in my car shed here from at headquarters, because when they turfed us out, Lyle Birch, everything's just got to be dumped. And I thought, I'm not dumping, a cupboard or leaving it there, because the committee had made that hall inside. It's beautiful. And it was all done by the Scouts. Those people have got the hall now. Big bonus, beautiful floor, kitchen, everything done properly and right. Anyway, this thing, so I grabbed it and I brought it home and there was bits and bits of papers and all that still, and I haven't been in there for a few years now. But you had to fill in this little, I forget, it had a number like an A4 or an A5, It was a rectangle thing about the size of a mobile phone. Had to fill it in, and you had badge examiners in throughout the area, and they could be leaders, they could be friends, they could be some. And you tried to have a badge secretary keep all them together. So when kids wanted to do something, they had to go swimming, they would have to go to their swimming coach, or if they played sport, they could get it from school or the coach wherever they're at. And then other ones which were there was only about 12 Cub Scout badges at the time, and the Scouts wasn't many more, and you just had these nucleus of testers and that to test it out. And I remember one lady over in Wandle there, she used to get the Cubs to do house orderly, and what it was make a bed, cook breakfast for the people in the house, tidy up, and you got the badge. Well, every weekend, her and her husband, because they supplied all the food, these kids would go and cook them breakfast, make the bread, sweep out the kitchen or whatever. Then they'd get their little house orderly badge. Remember that one? I don't know how the cooking ever went, but she always said they were really good. But, this was Cub age.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the same at the Scouts, they had all the examiners is what we call them. That's right. The badge examiner would fill in the thing. If you don't, and kids was do your best, try your best at it. And I mean, if you get to see if your kid was pulling the wool over your eyes, well, okay, you can have a little chat to them about it. But yeah, and then the badge secretary had to order the district badges, any special badges like the kids earn now where groups can just order them from Melbourne. Well, they all come through from Brisbane into the badge secretary here, and every Friday night during the school holiday, during the school term, it was mainly a Friday night, and sometimes when we had a DTM at the hall, you'd have them there then, so people could pick them up then. But they would come down or ring you up and say, I want to pick up some camping badges, this badge, that badge, and that, and some district badges, PL stripes or colours, whatever they were at the time. And then it all went that way. But yeah, it was a pretty full-on job, but it was just, and what could you say? It sort of drifted away because, how it is now is it's a lot easier for kids for the leaders to get the badges instead of waiting.
Order it straight.
Oh, you'd order it to come back and then be there. Anyway, 6 weeks later, you'd be still waiting for the badge. Whereas it wasn't thing. And and that was basically the role of the badge secretary. So, but while I was doing that, I was also we were running scent sales there, and what else did we run there? Yeah, it was scent sales at Scout headquarters on a Friday or a Saturday night. The committee would do, and we'd go down and we'd give them a hand with the stuff, and made really good money out. Like they were good money spinners for the district, and that. It was a hell of a lot of things went on.
Well, tell me about your connection with Sione Park, because I know Sione Park is a very special place for a lot of current and former Scout leaders, volunteers and youth members. And I'm interested to hear what that place means to you.
Yeah, well, I first went down there when I was probably around 8 or whatever, and we used to play on this old tram. It was a wreck. It was in the front up towards the it was in that round bit between the tank and Camp Petrol, just sitting there. Pretty dilapidated, and we used to climb all over, and there's probably snakes, spiders and anything else there, but, we were pretty tough in that era, I think. But anyway, no one got bitten or broken.
Too much noise, you scared them all away.
It turned out to be, and I'm only led to believe, I don't know if it's 100% true, but the Purry steam tram, that is the frame from down there that they run around the street now, which it's probably because I think it was the only one left in town, and I'm pretty certain that. But we'd have to check from the Purry like that it was actually that one. But yeah, us kids used to just crawl all over it it was like a monkey bars in because there was not much, some was just all steel stuff around it. Yeah, and that hiked the many, many, many times up to Balancing Rock and that. One little bit of a thing was that Gary Murray was always losing something, woggle, scarf, and all things, belts. And I was like a stick when I was growing up. Yeah, I was a stick. I was about, I don't know, might have been, anyway, the belts were far too big for Gary. Anyway, I come home from a cub hike one day and I get home. Where's your belt? I don't know, must have fell off. How it fell off, because it wasn't looped in anything, it just probably ran your waist. Because I think we used to wear those elastic waisted shorts, and you just put the belt around it. Wealthy people did have belted loops. We weren't. We just put it around. Anyway, I come home, I can't find it. Well, lo and behold, and I don't know where it ends up, but lo and behold, about 15, 18 years later, and Desi Bendor was a scout leader, district scout leader and scout leader at at Frenchville at the time. And they were out there doing something, and lo and behold, they picked up my belt. And all it had was the two ends and a little bit of leather on one, and they could see Gary Murray on it.
Yeah.
It had been, the other bit had obviously, and there was burn marks where it was off there, and that was returned to me. I don't know what I'd done with it. I probably should, I don't know where I put it, but I thought it laid out there 15 years. And lost that. County Park, like it's, and it took a lot of years for people to embrace going there because of how dry and desolate it was. And the big thing that I pushed for was that the water come past. And we used to have the district meetings at Warrapari and at County Park. We got this letter and it said, the water's coming past. It was going to cost us something like, I think at the time it was $4,000 or $5,000, which was a fair bit of money. And I said, that's a really good idea, because the water down there that comes out of that ground, it's only good for two things: laying dust and growing ironbark trees. It's no good for washing or the toilets. It just grows that stuff. We tried everything on it with Jackie Swartz's family. We put every conceivable thing on to stop it being brown, growing this, growing that. And it was classed as only good thing who could drink from it was animals. No good for human consumption whatsoever. And if you tried to grow anything like flowers or fruit or veggies, it wouldn't work because it was too much whatever was in it. But and I thought, that's really good. Well, I had to, in the end, beg and that to put it on there. And he said, we have a pump here with that. And I said, and all you're doing is fixing up all these rusted, things out and that. Anyway, he wouldn't have it. But then one meeting, Gary went along and stacked a meeting. I got a few district leaders along, so we got to come along here and roll this, because they were the group leaders from there. I said, to get the water. And I said to him, the time when I put it to there that night, I had a bit of a spiel, and I said to him, I'm going to move about the water. Oh, yeah, right, Murray. He did not like, because I probably used to say too much sometimes. But it was the truth. But the thing was, I said to him, water. He said, what are you so concerned about? It's going to cost money. I said, and you're a skill teacher? Yes. I said, what is water? He said, bloody water's water. I said, no, it's the essence of life. And he looked at me and he said, yes, smart ass. I said, well, it is, we get the water there, you solve the problem of having good quality water, all the problems with everything else and that, and got it on there. But it cost us, I think, in the end, about $8,000, which, it was, you had to go it that way because, like for, he said, I can drink out of the tank, and all this stuff. And I said, no, things have changed. We really need to step up to the mark. But gee, that took a lot of time and effort over the years to get that water to where it was. And I did have the North Rockhampton Rotary offered to run the pipes from there to the buildings, Camp Petrol, to all that stuff. I arranged for Henry Bosworth. He was the head plumber. And he was on the committee he was on the, what they call it, the North Rocky Rotary. He was on that, and they said, yes, we can do it. I took him down there, done all that. But at the end of the day, it's got a potential, 100 miles wide as well, you would know. And that with being viable and sustainable and an asset to Scouts Queensland, well and truly, because of what it is now, what you can get and do things, it's certainly got, but then again, it boils down to the nucleus of people to get it going, and working on it. It takes a hell of a lot of things, as you well know.
And I think it's like that place is not just for Scouts. Like, whilst Queensland does own it, and the Capricorn district gets to use it because it's where it's located, but so many other community groups that use that park, you know them. There's just so many. It'd just be a lot to rattle off, but we will get there. I'm confident we will. It'll just take time and people and money and grants.
But it certainly has got the, and it would be one thing you would never ever want to lose, part or any part of it because,
So thinking about facilities and the Warrapari Scout Den, you did a heck of a lot of work to that place to get it to where it is today.
Yeah, I haven't touched it today.
It used to be a low set place. It's, that land is on a hill. It's a bit awkward, but you make the most of it. The group does. It's about that process, like getting that raised, building in underneath, building the bathroom, shower, kitchen. And what was the motivation behind that?
The motivation come from the building was starting to move forward to the looking towards the road, moving forward and leaning to the right. And I remember many years ago, Brian Bullman, who was an architect draftsman and a leader there for many years and a commissioner for Rocky, he had a look at it and the engineer said it was from Holden Dancers there many, many, many years ago that they all went that way and it's put pressure on the building over the time. That was their theory. And it was, and they looked at it and we had, one of the committee at the time, which is probably 12, 15 years ago now, had a look and said, look, had a builder in and said, oh yeah, it definitely is doing that. And the theory about them dancing around the hall has probably got something to do with it because of the movement, like pressure on stuff over the years. Anyway, they said it needs to be lifted up and squared, and they said, and the thing was every time you went to get the trailer out, someone bumped their bloody head. Every time you needed chairs or something down, you had to go downstairs, pull them out, or the big long trestle tables and forms, and then you'd have to get them out. But anyway, this Jeff Roeder was one of the leaders. And Jeff was a big push behind, and there was quite a number on the committee of people that want to do it. So anyway, next thing you know, we're having this meeting about this doing the hall. Well, it got bigger than Ben-Hur because all of a sudden it was going from, just square it up, level it out, just lift it up a little bit to put. And I said, if you lift it a foot, you might lift it 6, 7 foot, 8 foot, double story. Oh yeah, okay. So it did start off a bit of hiccup, like a fella, because their health and safety wasn't really, really good. I ended up getting a project manager on, Keith. What's his last name now? I'll think of it shortly. He come on board, and he was an ex-scout from Frenchville or Mount Arch or whatever. I never went to Mount Arch or Frenchville. Keith Turner. He's a builder. What do you call it? Buffsman certifier in rock, and he come on board to our scout group for nothing, and just worked on things with it. Anyway, he, and so it went from there. But we had a meeting with the John Villiers Trust, which is based really in Central Queensland, and John Villiers was a stockman who worked, and he never married or that, and he used to, and he still does to this day, the uni, I think, Flying Doctor, Surf Life Saving, and any other groups that are connected to Central Queensland way. But every year he gives out so much of his funding towards grants and that. Well, we had this meeting with them because they were coming up, the people that looked after were in Melbourne. They were flying up to do something for Flying Doctors and the Surf Life Saving. Might have even been Red Cross too. They were here for the weekend. So anyway, they said they were coming up and we'd sent an application off. They said, can we meet you? And we said, they said, that's handy to the airport because we're hiring a car there and we've got a couple of hours to kill on whatever day it was on the weekend. And so they rocked in there, and then Gary arranged a big feast, morning tea or afternoon. I think it was morning tea or afternoon tea, 1 or 2. And we had the 12 members on the committee, and we had all this stuff. We had no really idea on what costing. We got there and they asked us, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not the brains behind the show. I might be the group leader, but the committee wants to do this. How much have you budgeted? Everyone's looking at each other saying, well, we don't even know about a budget. They said, well, and then one of the other old fellas up there, he was a builder, and he said, look, you're looking at this. He said, look, ballpark figure going to cost X, Y, Z. So anyway, one thing led to another, and they said, oh, okay, can we have, and we had a cup of tea, and I think might even been lunch, and they might had a cup of tea, lunch and thing there. And they said, can we have 5 minutes in another room? So down in the old leaders' room, they said, oh, that'll do. So I went down there, and then we all went outside and around for a bit because we've been sitting down for a few hours, come back up. Anyway, they said, oh, well, look, we made a decision. They said, we'll give you $50,000 now this was late May, early June, and we'll give you another, I think it was 25,000 on August the same year. So it was, the financial years they worked with. So next thing, they come there, we had nothing. They left there, and here we are all sitting there and all looking at $75,000. And we're shaking our head. And then they said, well, where do we start? Well, this is where things started to do. And then, as I said, we had to get rid of one fella because the health and safety side, and then Keith come on board. And then we got Ewan Filmer wrote all the applications, and at the end of the day, it just grew from there. Then the Uwasaki Foundation, I think we got about 75 off them altogether. Wow. There was, I think we got 2 lots of grants from the gaming community, which might have equated to about 50,000. I think from memory, it was about, the whole thing was around about 370,000 was spent on that to get it where, and it's not actually lined and sealed downstairs yet, but the thing's there. But then it was going really good until COVID come along then, and COVID the numbers just flowed out the door, and we've been struggling ever since to get members and committee together, but it just bloomed out of nowhere, like this thing. But anyway, it'll never blow away because it's so solid in that ground there. Yeah. And then we had another issue with, I knew there was rocks there because when we were kids, we were asked to dig around it, and we were under there in under that hall as kids and scouts. I think it was scout digging this out because they wanted to do something. Anyway, they said, no, like, look, he said, it's blue metal. You'll never get it out unless you blow it up. Which he was right, because when they'd done the reno, they rang me and said, oh, Gary, we've got a big problem here. There's a big piece of blue metal there. If we didn't have the building on top, we could crack it. We can't crack it because even though we can use it sort of to do it this way, it could crack and throw up, half a ton of rock and wreck your building. Anyway, they drilled. Anyway, they got to a point where that's why the hall is probably about half a metre higher than what it should be, so that they could get the clearance underneath. But yeah, so that blooming thing come back to haunt the group. And anyway, it cost us about, I think it was $12,000 to hire and stuff, trying to get this thing out. So we had 7,500 in a kitty that was sitting there every year. We just used to get a bit of interest off it, or get the interest off it. It was sitting there for 30 years. It was growing, and then I thought, oh, look, we need to pay some of this. So then Gary in his thing said, rightio, we'll send out a request to the service clubs. Well, I think we got in about 7,000 or 8,000 off the Rotary, the Lines, and any other one, and a GoFundMe page. GoFundMe page got about 3,000 of that, and then the 5,000 or 7,000 of the others. But we still had to dig into that money that we had spare there, and it's never been replaced. Once something like that goes, it's spent, and so it never ever. And that was our backup for all the years we'd had it there. It was great. But that's the short and tall of it, of that bit. Yeah, it's the fundraising that had been done. My mum and dad and heaps of other parents in West Robbie and kids from all over town now that do come over the years have been there. The amount of fundraising that we used to do there, they used to have a game they called WOG. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It was like an animal. They'd have what they call a dice, and number 1 was the body, number 2 was the head, number 3 was the tail, and 5 and 6 were its legs. And they had to, they had 4 people. It was like a kid's game, but the adult ladies played it. Boy, we used to run at Warrapari out at not Paradise Lagoons, at Matcham, it was called Matcham, Kenny Cole's place now, what do they call that? Kenroll on Scrubby Creek there, where the big Brahman farm is. We used to run the committee used to run a pit cook, and we'd have to have 300 to 400 people for that. And it was all done in the big pits there, and used to use the asbestos suits from the firefighting unit at the airport so they could get in and get stuff out.
Wow.
It ran for about 5 years, but that's going back probably 30, 35 years. But like the group was certainly, I probably should put it all down on a book thing.
That's why we're doing this podcast, Gary.
So write down the stuff, Gary, because I was looking at those books today where you can write in the stuff and start building on it. Yeah.
You know what's good about this Zoom though, which is why I opted for Zoom instead of Teams. Well, I don't know, Teams can probably do it too, but we will get an AI transcript about this podcast, this conversation. It'll be written for you, Gary.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll just email it to you.
And then I can, it's just that there's so much stuff, hey, that I probably take for granted. And like doing the job, as you say, for 50 years, I just took it, I don't know, not took for granted. What's the word? I just got in and done it. I never come home and kicked the cat or punched the wall or yelled at people. I can get stirred up pretty quick sometimes.
What are you trying to say, Gary, about the district? That's me now.
No. The past district.
I'm kidding.
That bit was really, but anyway, we won't dwell on that.
No, sometimes there's challenges across the years. People come and go.
Yeah, and that. But as far as doing stuff, I used to just get and do it. And I said, gee, if I'd been paying, you'd well know it if you volunteer. I thought, gee, if I'd got it as a part-time paid job after 50 years, we probably could have done, me and Mrs. Murray could have done a round the world boat cruise and flew business class.
Well, you know what, Gary, how about I be super generous and give you some long service leave?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that, just that, some people, I don't know, some people just get and do it, but my kids used to help out in the end a lot, and I used to say to them, they said, Dad, why do we have to help? Because I said, no, well, it's for all the penance. You're paying your penance for things that I didn't know about. You're done. They come and help me at Bunnings, and they'd all used to come and help me. Brothers and my sisters would do the same. We'd run stuff, and then I was a bit short. I'd go and ring one of them. They'd turn up. But Mum and Dad were always fundraising the Catholic Church, the Crescent Lagoon School. They were stalwarts years and years ago of the ALP, the QLP, and the DLP, which were Labor Party thing. And I remember going to them as a kid. Just loved going there because you used to get free ice creams and free soft drinks. But Mum and Dad were always working in the community, and we had nothing. No, we didn't even have a car. I think I would have been 18, before Dad got a car, push bike or taxi. We always done this stuff, and we had cattle and we were self-sufficient as far as meat and all that going down past the airport there. And but we never ever wanted for anything, although we didn't have a lot then. But anyway, I've all survived, and all my brothers and sisters and that have done well. And a lot of the people in West Rocky have done really, really well, because when we were growing up there, it was they were all labourers, basically on, very, very poor wages and that. But we survived and helped each other and helped this and helped that. So
yeah, absolutely. It's that sense of community, hey, where everyone looks out for each other. Yeah. So thinking about absolutely everything from when you're a youth member yourself through to being an adult member and a leader and all the different roles you've had, what would be the standout moment that you are most proud of? Just if you could pick just one, what's the best moment in scouting for you?
I don't really know. I mean, the hall getting to that point would have to be a standout, and just being a part of the bigger community stuff that we were doing. And seeing a lot of young people that have gone through the group that have become doctors, scientists. Young one left the group, but he never got quite to be a F-18 pilot. He ended up working, he's still in the RAF, but he's a flight engineer or something, but he didn't just have the quickness to be doing that. And heaps of others that have, gone on to bigger and better things. And put, you put that into the community and kids and just, it was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd never, when you do think back, oh, well, this has happened, that's happened. It was,
And what about, do you ever sit back and think about, it'd be thousands of young people that you've impacted and, you've played a small role in their journey of life, and sit back and think about all of those young people that are now the doctors and engineers and in the
Yeah,
RAF
yeah.
and just think about your contribution to their life.
Yeah, well, yeah, like it's, I don't know if that's mind-boggling. I suppose it's mind-boggling because if you start to get to find out where they've all actually gone and gone on, and I've had some sad ones with, a couple of them committed suicide, no teenagers, and what do you call it, leukemia and cancers. These young people under, 25, and that had been through the groups over the last 40 years. That these things are happening. Yeah, a lot of water under the bridge for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And what about in, was it 2022 when you received the Rocky Regional Council?
Well, I was very chuffed to get it. I didn't think I was, you're thinking worthy of it when I got the thing and that, and I thought, okay, why am I getting this? And the service awards that I've got from Scouts, gone down to Government House a couple of times and had a tea and a coffee. And I went down for a venturer getting their Green Scout. This is one of them that's now a doctor. His family said his grandfather had passed away, and I'd known them since the boy was 8 and he was now 18. And they said, Gary, can you go down with Christian and we're going to go to Chinchilla because his grandfather, who was nearly 100, had died. And so on that same week, we're happy if you're happy, and Christian's happy for you to go to the ceremony. Well, we did. I went to that, and of course we had a couple of wines there. Then he was 18, and I said, yes, he could have a drink. And it was always a live wire as a kid. And then they said, but he wants you to do something, but you don't have to. know what I said, they said, take him to the casino. I said, yeah, right, I'll go to the casino. I don't want to go to the casino. So, yeah, that was a highlight of a kid from Scouts through to Venturers, and he didn't go on to Rovers because then he went to Melbourne for training. He got a scholarship and all that to
Oh, wow.
that. Last I heard of him, he was at, what's it? It's on the border of Victoria and New South Wales on the southern end, the twin towns. What do they call them? Not Mildura, down that way. That he come up and and I used to see him every Christmas. He comes up and we'll go out and have a coffee or have a drink, and that. But he come up here. He come up here a couple of years ago when he was training, and his sister has a connection to Warrabinda Youth Services. So they said, oh, I'm going to go out there and help the hospital for a couple of weeks. So he rang Queensland Health. They said, oh, yeah, we'll have you. Well, he said he learnt more on that 12-hour shifts, loved it. He said, I was sewing up this, doing that. He said, in the Melbourne where he was working, he said, I never seen any of this. It was great, sewing up these little kids and they'd be screaming, oh, no, it's all right, you'll be right. And then stitch up her head, he said, and all this stuff. And I'm nearly cacking myself. And I thought, well, all those things you were doing, those kids, I said, that's what you used to do to yourself, and we'd be up to get to the. Yeah. He said, yeah, I was pretty wild one. I said, yes, but yeah, that's a standout.
Yeah.
And he always turned up for things, but there was that time around, and there's about 7 or 8 of them Ventures were really, really special young people, and now they're out there in the big wide world achieving big stuff. I think that's a feather in the cap for some reason.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But there's heaps of them, like getting the award. And I thought, yeah, okay, and I was happy, and and that, and
very, very well deserved, that one was.
And that's and it's things that most people have been around a long time. We don't really look for it and all that, and then when you do get, you get a bit of shell shock here, thinking okay, but very chuffed about it, and and all the families all my siblings, and they all turned up and all that stuff, and yep, you've done a good job. I said, right, okay. But then I'll just move on to do something else.
Yeah, you just keep chipping away. You just keep turning up.
Yeah. But the last 9 months I haven't had. I've been back to Doc the other day there, and he's happy with everything now. He said, now you just got to move forward, because I went and seen the vascular surgeon that I've been waiting to see him for 3 months because of a few issue things went wrong, but everything is good. And so, so I'm feeling a lot better that way, and getting back into exercise and that again now to, and that, but
You know you are allowed to rest, Gary. You can take it easy.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you, but if
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
leave one piece of advice for the generation that's coming along today, like the people who are coming along after you and after me, what one single bit of advice would you give?
Yeah, well, like respect for everyone, honesty, respect. Because I remember it's always stuck in the back of my mind, not the back, front, side, and up and down. Was my mum always said, honesty is the best policy,
Yeah.
and that's so. And respect people, help people. I mean, if something happens, and then I will go and help people, and you see on Facebook, stuff that you're thinking, why do people do this, or why are people saying that about them? Society has definitely, I don't know, it's gone upside down. Honesty, best policy, and help out who you can. Be there for each other. Listen to people. I don't have all the answers, but but respect, I think, is for everyone. Respect each other, their opinions, their ideas, and whether it's your skill teacher, your scout leader, or your coach or someone. Respect for people is high in my eyes of doing things, and do the thing to the best of your ability. And this is, I was saying to my grandkids, a couple of them really competitive. I didn't win, but him or her beat me, but, he got in the way, and I just slipped a bit, and I would have beat him. I said, did you go out and have the run and all that? Yep. Did you run as fast as you could? Yep. Well, did you try your best? Yep. That's the best thing. And playing the game, what's the best part of playing a game? Having fun, and if you win, it's a bonus. I said, yeah. You don't win like win at all costs. At all costs. If you don't win, don't you come home? Like that rubbish some people say. I said, yeah, participate, have fun, and if you win, it's a bonus. And I've always even said to my kids, and even when I used to play A-grade tennis, and you'd win some, lose some, and that. And I never, ever, ever, ever done what McNamee and all them think smashed a racket or that. You might think, oh, what have I done here? But I never, ever got to the point where, I was violent, volatile. Oh, you idiot. You might hit yourself on the head with the racket, boom, boom, walk away from it and finish the day. Congratulations, you won, I lost. But I wouldn't be driving home then when I was saying, if I done the best I can, some lose some, and that's but anyway. Yeah.
I love
so
that.
I think
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, well, thank you so much, Gary, for participating in this podcast with me. It's really awesome to learn lots more about your scouting history, and really appreciate you sharing so much.